Good day, America! Red Ho coming back at you. We're going to talk more funny stuff so you can laugh with me. Just don't laugh at me. All right, you can laugh at me too. So let's get started. All right, I wanted to start off by saying this is the month of July. In the month of July, of course, every hard blooded American knows that it is the America's birthday. Yay! Alright, so with America being 249 years old, almost got to that 250 mark, which obviously will be next year. So we did a lot of celebrating. It's already post that time frame, but that's okay because busy, 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 always doing things, and like I've been mentioning here the last few months. Long story short, we are just about ready for that sound of music. So yeah, we're really getting going on there. So all right, great. So now wanting to get back this whole process that we've gone through with the sound of music and the entertaining part, which if anybody knows, I started this podcast so that way I can be funny because I like to entertain. But it really makes me want to, excuse me, get back into music because music is wonderful. I was a drummer growing up in school. I started in sixth grade. Just started off with just a little bitty pad with some sticks and learned a few rhythmatics here and there. I was not very good at reading the actual music part. We didn't really get into a whole lot of that. I mean, we did do competitions and stuff. We did, learn what the notes looked like, but to actually physically read it, I wasn't the greatest at it, or at least applying what I've seen anyway. So, but I did a lot of my stuff that I used to do by ear. Um, Shout out to a couple of the guys, a couple of the people that were in my band, especially my senior year. Every year during the marching portion of it, which was always in the fall, we would have to come up with a cadence, something that we would march in between songs or play in between songs. Something that would get the ball rolling, get people hyped up, and that kind of stuff. Well, since we didn't do a whole lot of, we did a lot of playing by ear. Um, we would actually go into our vehicles during band time early on. We would play some music and see if we can listen to a type of beat that we can, put to a 4/4 time. And we found one that was actually like 6/8 time or a 3/4 time, probably more of a 6/8 time, and it didn't quite mesh. But we did bring it up to our music teacher. Our music teacher was like, "Well, how about we change and tweak it just a little bit to uh, make it sound good?" So we did the tweaking. We made it sound good and made it work with it. And you know, um, last time I talked to my old marching friends, they said I was just really good at that kind of stuff. And I said, well, I couldn't read music very well at all. I want to play it off because right now I couldn't just pick up sticks and just be able to do any type of rudimentary stuff. I might be able to hold a beat pretty good, but other than that, not really. But it did make me want to, all this sound and music stuff. It really made me want to get back into, you know, doing some kind of music, trying to learn guitar or keyboard or even if we was to get another a set of drum sets where you can electric drum set where you can change the sound on each one and just start playing with it that way and start coming up with your own beats and that kind of stuff, and it would be a lot of fun. Obviously, um, it will happen eventually, but um, it's not something that I am. It's more of a hobby and just for fun. So putting up the money for that kind of stuff just to play around seems retarded for me. I mean, for me, I don't think it'd be a good idea, but it still got me thinking about it. Trying to find an app with with the right kind of DJ mixer or something that I effect on there. But we'll see. Time will fly. Time will go by. We'll see how everything goes from there. Okay, so the next thing I want to bring up to you, the main purpose of this episode of the show, is I wanted to talk about the things that I've done in the Army. I'm not referring to, the drunk stuff that I used to do, the wild, crazy, off the wall kind of stuff. I'm talking about things like, like I told you before, I spent some time in Bosnia, and we did do hazing, and I've already mentioned that when I got promoted, doing the hazing and that kind of stuff. Well, this one thing that was brought to my attention, and I was actually able to remember what happened. Mind you, young guy, 19, young and dumb. Uh, we had a lieutenant that would tell me to go get a box of grit squares. I don't remember if I mentioned this on one of the previous episodes or not, but I'm going to say it anyway. Um, but yeah, he sent me to go get a box of grid squares. Now, anybody knows what a grid square is. It is actually a square grid on a map. You had the big old map, and you have each grid square. So if you were trying to find Tokyo, Japan, and you would look on the map, and it would have a square where Tokyo is at, and then it would have a letter or a number coinciding, so that way you knew which grid Tokyo, Japan was in. I don't know why I brought Tokyo in, because I've never been there. And without hesitation, I just simply started going from motor pool to motor pool, and there were probably like 7 of them, asking for a box of grid squares. I had no idea, and I was walking everywhere too, so I was like starting to get wore out. It was hot, and finally the last guy that looked at me, he was like, "Do you even know what a grid square is?" I said, "Yeah, it's on the map," and it was, oh, duh. So of course I'm doing the walk of shame back to the motor pool where we originally came from, and the lieutenant's just laughing his head off. Everybody else around him practically on the floor laughing, and of course I'm like, okay, new guy, busted. Almost everybody gets busted at one point in time. Another prime example, we did a lot of crazy things to people. Um, if you have some new guy come in, we would have him test the shocks on a tank. Now, if you don't know, which you probably don't unless you deal with other type of equipment on the civilian side, tanks don't have shocks. So they'll be sitting there, you'll see somebody jumping up and down on top of the tank, trying to, see if it, has a give and it's got a soft move to it. And we had a laugh. It was just crazy. Now, they never made me do that. I had that figured out already. But another thing that we used to do was have the new guy get an exhaust sample. And you don't test exhaust. But they would sit there and they go out there with a trash bag, start up whatever vehicle that they needed to start up, and then they would take the exhaust fumes, put it into this trash bag, and then they tie it up, and they would bring it up to us. Of course, I think a lot of these tricks has to do with obeying orders, which is why people don't think twice, they just go do it. I know that was what the case was for me. I didn't want to second guess anybody. I don't do that kind of stuff now. But back then, somebody gave me an order, I would do it, and that's just the way it was. So, oh yeah, it was crazy. So the next thing we'd have somebody do is we'd have them check the armor on a tank or an up armored Humvee, something like that. And what would we do? We tell them you take out a ball peen hammer, right, and you tap on the armor, right. If it had a loud sound to it, it's fine. But if it had a low, deader sound to it, it's weak. And then you draw a circle. Well, you'll see, some of these vehicles with circles all over. All we do is just laugh. It was just hilarious. I know I've seen a lot of videos and that kind of stuff about mopping on a rainy day, that kind of stuff. You've probably seen several of them, especially on YouTube, which, by the way, if you want to hear more of these, please click on the subscribe, like, and we can do, you can listen to every episode, every short that I do, everything that I actually post on YouTube. It's also going to be on Spotify. I'm not sure about the shorts on Spotify, but like the regular episodes will definitely be on Spotify. Another thing we used to do was the whole mopping on a rainy day. That was something that I've never seen done. Um, we did at one time have what was called the dry sweep boogie. Um, in case you don't know, dry sweep is also similar to kitty litter, and what it does is it helps soak up oil that gets spilled onto concrete, that kind of stuff. Uh, Even vomit, really. I mean, that works multiple purposes. But if you had a truck that was leaking oil, especially if you didn't know that it was leaking, and you start driving around the motor pool and out the door, that kind of stuff, they'll stop you and they say, "Okay, it's time to do the dry sweep boogie." So we'd sit there, we'd sprinkle all this kitty litter, dry sweep out on over the top of all this oil and that kind of stuff. And then, of course, we would take our feet and we'd be shuffling our feet to kind of grind it in so we can get every bit of that oil soaked up. And, of course, we start turning it into a dance. It's like, do the dry sweep boogie. So, yes, and I've had to do that several times. Not because I was crazy or anything like that. Just something just happened to happen to a vehicle, and I didn't have to do it for a very, very, very long time. But something spilled on the ground. Oh, time for the dry sweep boogie. So we just go ahead and just do the dry sweep boogie. Reference to Boot Scootin' Boogie, in case y'all didn't know that. Now, it is a country song, so some of you that don't listen to country, if you don't know the song, it was pretty popular in the 90s. Now, another thing that the military was actually very, very big on was being on time. I've heard 15 before 15. You need to be 15 minutes before the 15-minute mark of the time you're supposed to be there. So you're going to be there half an hour early. That was implanted into my head even as a child because my father was the same way, or is the same way. So it's really one of those things, you know. Um, but we had a lot of fun. I mean, there was a lot of things that was, you know, grindy and that kind of stuff. When you do things like this to each other, first of all, it thickens your skin. Second of all, it gives you the most welcome camaraderie that you could possibly think of. I mean, we mess with each other all the time. And if they didn't mess with you, they probably didn't like you. Or they would beat you up, whichever. But if you were late, even if you were a minute late, a lot of times what they would do is they would take a wall clock and they would put a rope on it and they put it around your neck. And you had to wear that for anywhere from one day to an entire week. That way you can't say that your clock didn't work or your alarm didn't go off or something like that. There was always no excuse for being late. So that made it a real big deal. Uh, Now, another thing that I seen that a guy had pulled on my roommate of all people. Now, this roommate was in the military longer than me. Not the brightest, unfortunately, but he was a good kid, or a good guy anyway. And we were out in the field, and my squad leader, he told this guy, "Hey, specialist so and so, go up to the platoon sergeant, who is an E7, by the way. E7 is a sergeant first class in the United States Army. In the Marine Corps, it's a gunny sergeant, uh, chief petty officer, or maybe a petty officer, or something like that in the Navy. I don't know the naval ranks. I do apologize for that. But he would say, go up to the platoon sergeant and ask for a prick E7. Now, to date back to draw that back just a little bit. A PRC 127 was our handheld radios. That's what we call them, Crick 127s. Either he didn't hear the 127, or he simply was just slow. But he left. He was like, "Yes, Sergeant." He took off. Of course, we started chuckling because we already knew what was going on. Well, he had come back like 10, 15 minutes later. He was like, "Sergeant, they did not have any more Prick E7s, but they do have two Prick E5s. Now, an E5 is the three stripes, regular sergeant, no, you know, one step up from a specialist type of thing. And this is my squad leader. He was an E5 at the time. He kind of looked at him and, "You're calling me a prick?" "Well, no, Sergeant, that's just what he said." He was completely oblivious, and we were all dying laughing. Peace to that guy. I don't know what happened to him, because once I left that unit, I haven't heard from him again. A couple of other things that I do. I do have anger issues that might have a lot to do with some of the anxiety I've dealt with and depression. But I have anger issues. I've had anger issues for a long time. I could be fairly short fused even when I was a younger kid. Somebody messed with me. I could take it for a while. But once I snap, then it's like anger crazy. Prime example, um, working in a motor pool, you're working on these parts, trying to get parts put on, and you might struggle a little bit. And it's like, it's aggravating that things are just not working out the way you want. And getting help as far as to get some of these things, can't have somebody help because it's a one-person job. Not necessarily simple, but it was a one-person job, so you couldn't do it. Well, um, I was underneath the truck, and I think it was putting on a drive shaft. It was a small drive shaft that was between the transfer case, it transferred from two-wheel drive to four-wheel drive, and the rear differential, or front differential, sorry. And it was a short piece, wasn't that big, heavy, because it was a large truck. So I'm putting it on my shoulder, and I'm getting it up to where it needs to be, and I'm sitting there trying like crazy to get it lined up, trying to get it lined up, trying to get it lined up. And I mean, it was so frustrating. I was just going crazy. And, finally I just said, the heck with it, not in those words. I actually picked up like a smaller log chain, and I just picked it up, and I threw it as hard as I could up against the door. It made a huge bang in the motor pool. Everybody just jumped up. "What the F was that?" Well, they knew it was me, my best friend. He's like, "Come on, man, we're going to have to take a break because you need to get away from that stuff for a while." So we, stepped back. We took a breather. He kind of got my mind off it for a minute so that way I can, kind of recollect my thoughts. And sure enough, crawled back underneath there, lifted it up, slid it right in like it was nothing. It was That kind of thing has happened, and that is a life lesson for majority of the people in this world. If for whatever reason you are struggling with something and it's just so frustrating, you think you have to just get it done. Stop. Take a step back. Take a breather. Count to 10. Just go and get your mind off of it briefly. If you have a friend that's with you, have them help out too. Then go back to it, and I bet you that things will go a lot more smooth. It happens to me all the time, so I can only imagine what it would do to other people. Alright, so that's all I'm really going to put out for today. I am going to put some shorts in between because here pretty soon I should be putting out a short for our midnight or our moonlight race that we're having. Sailing. Everybody knows I like sailing. So, I'll have pictures and that kind of stuff put up on YouTube, more than likely Spotify, and of course on my Facebook page when it comes to of this kind of stuff. And hey, just sit back and enjoy. Like, subscribe to both Spotify and or YouTube. And also, if you want to get onto my Facebook page, it is Good Day America. Um, you'll see my fugly mug. I'm going to put that on there. Fugly mug in a drawing type of scenario. You might have seen that on Spotify as well. But yeah, like, subscribe, tell me your thoughts. I want to hear what's going on with those brains of yours. Maybe you have some jokes that I can tell. I mean, I might be able to come up with a few jokes. I gotta be as clean as possible. Hopefully, I can find a few of them anyway. And yeah, well then we'll get the ball rolling. So um, until next time, good day, America.